Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio.
Welcome back to TexAgs Stacked. I'm Billy Liucci.
Olin Buchanan.
Make a mistake. We're not going anywhere. This is going to be a great program, and we're building it into a great program.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I stand by what we do and how we do it.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
That's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
So I don't know. Kind of confused which direction to start off the show. Do we pick from the positive area or the negative area? It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. My partner is on the road, Olin Buchanan, in Alabama. Are you Hoover? Where are you, Birmingham?
Right now, I'm in Hoover.
Hoover. Good old
That's
Hoover.
where the hotel is.
Good look. Good look. I wish you would have taken the banners with you. It would have been...
I think they were sent, but we lost them.
No. Again? OB, you pick what we start with. Do we go positive to start, or do we go negative to start?
I think we should go positive. I think there's been enough negativity, and now it's, sometimes it's best to just accentuate the good stuff, and then maybe that'll put you in a better mood.
Look, I know people are into the basketball team, right? Like I think it takes a little while to get basketball juices going, and especially when they get the conference play and they play well, it kind of changes the vibe. 2 years ago, it really was 10 days to maybe 2 weeks before the SEC season ended where A&M found its mojo. Last year was all of SEC play. They struggled in the non-conference. And I'm just going to start things off with the news that you, I think, predicted on this show yesterday. Wade Taylor named the SEC's preseason player of the year, a gentleman that really found his groove when SEC play started last year, Olin.
Yeah, I mean, when SEC play started, it seemed like he also raised his level, and he was really good. And then there came and I don't have that in front of me. I'm going by memory. But then there came a stretch, and I want to say mid to late February, where he was you could count on him for 20 points a night.
Yep.
And he went from being really good to being, and the word great is used too often, but great, to being one of the best players in America. And it's because of what he showed last year in the tournament at the end of SEC play against Alabama and a win over Tennessee, all those games. People look at that and say, all right, this guy, man, it's the best player in the league. And quite frankly, I think he really, if he continues to progress, I don't know that you can expect him to do a whole lot more than he did in that stretch. But as he continues to progress, I don't think it's outrageous to suggest that this guy could be a All-American. When was the last time A&M had a All-American basketball player?
Olin, this is not a shot at football, but it can be a shot at football. I mean, depending on how you want to take it. Buzz has developed players. He gets players that fit what he wants to do. And then he kind of fixes his system based on what their skill set is. Like there's a certain work ethic you have to play for Buzz Williams. But then the offense can change. The way they get into their offense will be determined by the kind of players they have. And as Wade Taylor is a guy that had a lot of promise as a freshman. But the growth that we saw from freshman year to sophomore year, again, reps, games, all go a long way toward that. But has set him up for this. I will say this, OB, though. to be considered legendary status, like when I say legendary status, I'm talking about like the way we look at AC Law and some others, right? You got to do it in the postseason, and that's and he's done it somewhat in the SEC tournament. We need to see it in the NCAA tournament.
Right. Yeah, and I kind of think you will. Maybe last year that disappointing showing against Penn State might be a learning experience, but these guys have typically taken whatever the next step is, from not being in postseason to, getting hosed, but getting in the NIT and then going to the final and almost winning it, coming one shot that was about halfway down and rattled out from winning it. And then last year, getting to the NCAA tournament, almost winning the SEC tournament again. And then, so what's the next step? Get into the tournament and win some games. And I think what you'll see from WED beyond, averaging probably 20 points a game, and that, that's hard to do. So maybe I just put an unfair expectation on him. But beyond scoring a lot of points and getting some assists, is that look for him to be more of the word leader is so overused, and your point guard, of course, your leader, but just more of that vocal guy he's always been, but even more so, a smarter player, a guy that's going to be able to set the tone for his team on a nightly basis. I think that's going to be the biggest difference between him, is what you're going to see out of him, just completely running the show.
OB, every year that I've been here, and I know that it was the case before, there's somebody who emerges as like not only an alpha, but like you need him, right? Q developed into like just an assassin on the basketball court, and I knew he was a good scorer, but that 2021-22, he really took his game to new heights. Dexter Dennis last year was a guy that you can count on. Looks like an NBA player, is looking like he's going to be a mainstay with the Mavs. Like he was that guy. I'm curious, and again, two different style of roles there. Q was more your scorer. Dexter was more your defensive guy who could hit some threes and play, spot up and shoot. I'm wondering on this roster if there's a new guy, and I haven't studied them enough to see it. I think those things are developed. Somebody's going to have to take that mantle of defensive guy, right?
Yeah. And of course, we're talking sight unseen here, but the transfer, what's his name? Is it Jace Carter? Is that
Jace Carter? Yep.
Yeah, I think from what I understand, he kind of looks not facially, but physically a whole lot like Dexter Dennis, and is supposed to be a tough guy and all those things.
I think he's more of a scorer too, right?
And can score. I still think Manny Obaski's a guy that's going to be a really good player.
I do too.
And maybe this is here. Last year he had the hand injury that made him miss about half the season. Maybe this is the year he takes a huge leap forward. And and forgive me for not.
I got another one for you, OB.
Go ahead.
How about my guy, Anderson Garcia?
After what I saw from Anderson last year, I wouldn't put any doubts on him. He was a guy that was in a supporting cast kind of role.
Yep.
And he didn't score a ton, but how many of those pivotal plays did he make? Like the steal against Alabama. It seemed like there was a really big rebound he had, maybe in that same game, but in another big one, maybe it was against Tennessee. Like I said, they didn't ask for him to score, but what they asked him to do, he did in such a huge way.
He did.
Yeah, might be Anderson.
And I'm going to throw you a couple other names just because, like, I'm re-looking at the roster like, oh, and they got this guy too, Solo. Solo showed me flashes of being a stud player, like team leader. Yeah.
And that's another guy. They got, don't they? And you talk about the sight unseen, and forgive me for not remembering all the names yet, but don't they have like a 6'10" transfer coming in?
Yes. I'm not remembering his name either. By the way, another name we forgot to mention: Julius Marble, Henry Coleman, Boots Radford, like those dudes.
Wildens Levesque is the name of the transfer.
Yeah. So they need some help inside. And maybe that guy's going to be the guy that's going to provide that help. So what's going on here is you start reading those names and you think, wow, that's a really solid roster. Of course it is. It was a roster that finished second in the SEC and dang near won it last year.
Right.
So only one guy from that team, only one guy who was a key figure of that team has departed. So heck yeah, it's a solid roster, and it has a chance to, to give A&M, maybe its best season since, and maybe even better than that. 2000 was it 16? Well, yeah, I guess it was 16 when they went to the Sweet 16.
Yep.
And lost to Michigan. Well, that team got, as my memory serves, they had a period in the season where they didn't play well for about 6 games, if my memory is right. Well, this could be that team that you don't see that obvious lull in the season. Are you going to go undefeated? Of course not. Nobody does it anymore. But we've seen that one year when they struggled in the early, like last year, and then the year before when they had that early in SEC play, they struggled. And then there's been those pockets of trying to figure things out. Well, this might be the team that is figured out from the get-go. And yeah, they're going to lose here and there, but maybe avoid a losing streak that the NCAA committee seem to always magnify when they're considering A&M.
OB, we're not going to spend too much time here because Billy's going to join the show at 8:35 to talk about it. But Draylen Miller decommits, and I guess the theme of this is we've been here before. Stud guy wants to go to A&M, gets discouraged midway through the season, and opens up his recruitment. I read Bronny's update last night, and it seems like this family really loves A&M, but unsure about the offense and unsure about the wins and losses. And you know what? That might be a theme until they figure things out, if they figure things out.
Well, to me, that as if Jimbo doesn't need even more motivation. That should be something that really, if it hadn't already, grabs your attention and shakes everybody out of this conservative, sometimes overly conservative offense. Yeah. You said it at the game against Tennessee. It's not 100%, but it seems like you can just on second down running play. If it's not 100%, but it seems like that's a high percentage that you can almost guess it. To not be, again, so predictable, I don't know. None of us know if it's true or not, whether Jimbo is keeping Bobby Petrino from doing the things Bobby wants to do, right? We don't know. But if he's limiting Bobby Petrino, this is one of those things that tells you stop limiting. And if it's not that, it's one of those times of telling.
Yeah.
And we got to open it up and do what it takes, because we don't just need to win. You need to start looking good, winning, and showcase. Feed those studs like you promised to do. And you know what? Maybe if you get on a roll and you start looking good doing it, and it starts with protection, we know that because they got skill guys. But maybe if you can do that, if you can put 3 or 4 of those drives together, like you opened up against Tennessee and looked good, maybe a guy like Draylen Miller reconsiders late. It's happened before.
Let me see if this makes sense to you. It's not just that they're losing, right? It's the way they're losing. We've said that a few times. But beyond that, it's the fact that this offense, like, you lose the way you lost in Miami, you're like, look at this offense, right? Like, look, we got to make a couple tackles, and we'll figure. Like, the things that we thought A&M put a Band-Aid on or fixed completely have popped up. And I understand the backup quarterback scenario, but you're out of that. Like, that is no longer, to me, a real talking point with this level of offense. It needs to be an offense. Other teams have backup quarterbacks that move the ball a little bit. Move the ball a little bit in the second half. How about that?
Well, we were told that A&M essentially had 2 starting quarterbacks, that it was a really tough decision. There wasn't much difference between them. But we were also told that A&M had 2 NFL caliber quarterbacks. They had Zach Calzada and Haynes King. So what we're told doesn't always show up on the field. I still believe that that Max is capable. I think you got to do more to protect him, and you got to do more to get him to understand when to get rid of the ball, maybe move him around some. But the fact of the matter is, you have offensive talent. So you've got this whole 2 weeks to get ready for the next game against a team that's not a great defensive team at all. And this is your opportunity, not even opportunity, this is your hill to die on to get your offense out of neutral and really get it going. And if you can do that, you know what, one of the things you're going to if you can show some signs of life, then you can go back to Draylen Miller and say, listen, look what we're doing now. And remember, when you come to A&M next year, you're going to have Connor Wigman throwing to you. And if you go to LSU next year, that's not going to be Jaden Daniels throwing to you.
Right.
So you do whatever you can, but you're going to have, look, kids want to play in offenses that are exciting, that are going to help them get into the NFL, that they're going to see, hey, look what you can do to get attention and become a first-round draft choice. And when you're not able to move the ball consistently, what tells a kid, especially at the receiver position, hey, this is going to be a fun place to play?
All right, let's check in with the people out there. Jim in Temple sends us a text about Draylen Miller open up recruiting. I didn't know that. Thanks, Jim. No, I'm kidding, buddy. Let's check in with, by the way, if you want to be part of the conversation like Jim, I won't make fun of you. 979-693-1150 is the phone number. We go behind the glass to say hi to Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Got to unmute my mic first. Howdy, good morning, y'all.
Buddy. How are you?
I'm good. When I first started working here, or I guess kind of after I graduated, I wasn't really the biggest basketball fan, but I mean, this team and all the players, especially kind of being around them here in the office, how could you not root for that team, especially Wade Taylor? Well-deserved, and hopefully they can, like you said, OB, put it all together, use last year as a learning experience, and go on a pretty good run there in the NCAA tournament.
We need that, but it's I'm just looking forward to seeing some really good basketball, high-level winning, and hopefully we get that. Let's check in at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Kennedy Cavan is in the house. Kennedy, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Tell me something good.
Well, other than basketball and bye-week football this week, we got softball traveling to Texas to kick off their fall scrimmages. We have men's tennis continuing their fall season at the ITA Texas Regional. And softball is going to host Blinn here tomorrow. Quick turnaround for them. And then an exciting game. We got soccer versus number 17 South Carolina on Thursday over at Ellis Field. I heard Coach G talk yesterday at the press conference, and he's pretty pumped up about it. And I think they're expecting a pretty big crowd over there. Got a baseball scrimmage at Houston this Friday. And then my team and Coach Jamie Morrison, they're taking on number 17 Florida at Reed Arena on Friday as well. I'm excited for that.
Excited as well. Miss Cavan, can you do me a favor? Just read one text. Chase in Houston, because at least the first part of it, I want to ask OB what he thinks about this. Because is it as simple as, well, just read it, and then I'll ask OB the question.
Okay, Chase in Houston said, if this O-line was remotely decent at all, as a group, this offense would average 28 points a game at this point and probably win some games by the end of the year.
OB, is it as simple as the O-line, or is it the O-line changes the way they play call?
Well, if the O-line changes the way they play call, then I think it
is the O-line.
Be as simple as fixing the O-line.
Yeah.
Look, that's the number one issue. Max seeing things fast and getting rid of the ball faster, identifying, that's the number two issue. And or maybe the play calling is number two, but Max and needing to see things, recognize, and get rid of the ball faster is certainly one of them. And then, it's not like they never move the ball. They move the ball. They just it's Max Wright getting a chop block penalty. Again, it's tripping over guys. It's getting false starts. It's tripping over somebody. They make plays. They just can't finish. So yes, I think with better line play, but also just capitalizing on your opportunities, then yeah, I think this team could average 30 points a game from here on out.
When we come back on TexAgs, we're going to look into the games to watch this weekend, plus OB at some point during the hour will get his power rankings. Billy Liucci will join us at 8:35. Buddy, you're far from Fargo's. You are not as far as it can be, but you're pretty far.
Yeah, I'm too far. But if you can't be there at Fargo's, you can actually look forward to the next time you're going to Fargo's. And, for me, the next time, if I had that opportunity, would always be on Tuesdays and Saturdays to get the rib tips. But, like if you felt like today on a Wednesday you wanted to go, you could say, I feel like some real good chopped beef on a baked potato, trust me, the chopped beef there is excellent. I love it on a sandwich, but you can get it on a baked potato. Of course, they have all the other typical things that you would find at a good barbecue place, like the brisket, the ribs, the sausage. But man, today it's the chopped beef on a baked potato. Boy, that tastes good.
Well, I know Alan, Belinda, Maurice need to be aware. I'm calling them on Saturday. I got a buddy coming from L.A. I've been bragging about Fargo's to him, so get ready for a phone call for a big order. Hopefully you guys don't run out of the rib tips, because I need me some of those. All right, you know where it is, 1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan. Without a doubt, the what?
The best barbecue in Texas, i.e. the world.
It's true, OB.
Yeah, that's why it's a trademark.
See, I reversed it on you, and you were ready for it. Look at that.
I was ready.
You were ready. It's Fargo's. Check it out. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looked so good with Maroon U. Olin Buchanan is in Alabama for SEC Basketball Media Days. I'm obviously here in studio. OB, are you ready to do some games that you want to watch?
Sure I am.
Okay.
Well, at least I thought I was. Let me see. Thought I had those right here. Okay, here we go. Let's start off with the game that I think is the most intriguing game of the week. How about Penn State at Ohio State? I think the line on that is Ohio State 4.5, and they're getting 3 points for being at home. So it's really a toss-up. The winner becomes the chief threat to Michigan in the Big Ten East. They stay in the playoff picture. Ohio State has been – the record's not as good, but they've been tested more than Penn State. And Penn State's undefeated, but you have to ask yourself, have they really been tested? Well, they're going to get tested against Ohio State.
Which way are you leaning in this one?
I'm leaning toward Penn State, but there have been times Ohio State just hasn't looked very good. But then they beat Notre Dame. So, you saw what Notre Dame did to USC. So I think it's going to be a heck of a football game.
What's the next one?
Tennessee at number 17, Tennessee at number 11, Alabama. Of course, first of all, it's a huge regional rivalry. I mean, it's huge. Think A&M, LSU, that kind of thing. And you know what? Both teams with a loss. So both teams are still in the SEC championship picture. Both teams are in the playoff picture. And one of them will remain in that picture. And, so there's a lot at stake for a traditional rival game. So that, that makes it even better.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see the battle of these quarterbacks. Jalen Milroe has been the better quarterback this year.
He's better.
I'm curious to see, though, if Tennessee's defense can give him some problems, and if Alabama's going to give Joe Milton some serious problems, because he could not hit any shots down the field. The third game I'm intrigued because of the programs involved and what they mean to Texas A&M in different unique ways.
Yeah, number 16 Duke at number 4 Florida State. Both are in the thick of the ACC championship race. Both teams could make the playoffs with a strong finish. I mean, Duke has the one loss. It was a real close game against Notre Dame. If they were to beat Florida State and go on and run the table, win the ACC, who's to say that Mike Elko can't get his team in the playoff? And then there's Florida State, still unbeaten. They've beaten LSU. They've beaten Clemson. Put Duke on that. And, man, that's one heck of a playoff resume. So, the top two teams, regardless of, they don't have divisions, the ACC. So the top two teams get into the ACC championship game, and whoever wins this game is probably going to be one of them.
I'm intrigued by this next one. I want to see what happens to USC after losing to Notre Dame, and then they've got to host a pretty good team in Utah.
Yeah, number 14 Utah, number 18 USC. Look, kind of the same thing we've been talking about. One loss team, the loser gets eliminated probably from the Pac-12 championship picture. Utah plays good defense. They don't play as good a defense as Notre Dame does. Utah has their moments offensively, but they're not a dynamic offense. But USC has a outstanding, how about this, an overwhelming offense and an underwhelming defense. So I still think USC is going to win here because I think they're going to outscore a Utah team that can be inconsistent offensively. But Utah, that said, Utah may score the most points it scored all year because that USC defense really is atrocious, as are all the defenses of Lincoln Riley teams.
Yeah. Yep, you're exactly right. The last game, intrigued as well, a team coming off a loss. Break it down for me, Washington State and Oregon.
Yeah, Washington State's really not bad. They can move the football, so they can be dangerous. They're not a team that's going to play for a championship, but if you're overlooking them, they can get you. They can beat you. And man, even at home, Does this sound like a perfect trap game with Oregon having lost last week in a big showdown with Washington and with Utah next week? If the Ducks are sleepwalking at all, Washington State can beat them and really ruin their season.
OB, we're going to check in with you after we talk to Billy. We'll talk to you in a bit.
Yeah, I'll be listening.
All right, now it's time to talk about Milliken Reserve, the great community out there. Neighborhoods at Milliken Reserve are nothing like your typical subdivisions out there. They're based entirely here in the Brazos Valley landscape and that heritage as well, closely linked to the land with deep roots to Texas. There's no place like Milliken Reserve out there. Some great little areas as well. The creek homes are on 10-acre wooded estates throughout. The owners have their own expression throughout that as well. The hollow homes in a private gated village connect directly to nature by trails. You've got the meadows. Homes at the meadows are responsive to their natural surroundings, following the lead of early local Texas agriculture. It's just a cool place, guys. Milliken Reserve is rooted in Texas soil. If it sounds like a place that you're interested in, you can learn more at millikenreserve.com. Remember, they're trying to connect families to nature and to each other out there. 2,600 acres of open space, 30 miles of trails, and of course, they've got those beautiful homes providing a natural setting for people to connect and come together. The website is millikenreserve.com. millikenreserve.com. Check it out. Time does march on here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Draylen Miller decommits yesterday. Obviously, hopefully it's not a huge ripple effect. Let's find out more from TexAgs co-owner and executive editor Billy Liucci, who's joining us here on a Wednesday morning. Billy, good morning.
Nuño, what's up, buddy?
All right, man. Let's start it off with yesterday's news. I can't say that I'm surprised, just because of some of the intel that Bronny had put out the week prior, and here we are, Draylen Miller decommitting.
Yeah, and it's a tough blow. It's not at their biggest position of need, but here's where I'm at with Draylen Miller. When they committed him, I felt like they landed one of the best football players, playmakers in Texas. And I always talk about how important that is. And, you know, whether you've got an explosive offense that scores a lot of points, then those type players can become all SEC studs and guys that can, you know, light up a scoreboard for you. When you're struggling offensively, those are the guys you need then more than ever. You know, so, I mean, you look at an Anaya Smith, and for what this offense hasn't been able to do in recent weeks, where would they be without Anaya? You know, and so I think there's that factors into it too. Like A&M needs playmakers. They need ball players and kids that are that hungry to win and really culture changers. And I think Draylen Miller had that type of DNA. You know, the other thing is, you know, you talked about it earlier, the ripple effect and the potential ripple effect. I think he had a big role in some guys committing. You know, they saw Draylen. He was kind of one of the first ones to commit and make that pick, and they were all kind of in it together to a degree. Ty Anthony Smith, the linebacker at Jasper, Weston Davis, the offensive lineman out of Beaumont, and eventually Terry Bussey. Like, these guys they weren't all like a package deal by any stretch, but they certainly one commit by one of them piqued the interest of the other, and then there was two, and then the third one was really looking at him, and then there was three, and that certainly was tied in. So I think, you know, and I know Weston Davis is a guy that we're keeping a close eye on right now. Barely picked A&M over LSU a couple months ago, and LSU's got some momentum right now, so it's like a double problem, a double whammy when you're sitting there with you're not only losing one of your top recruits and a guy you really loved, but you're losing them to a division rival that you're going to be playing every year, and you might lose two of them to a division rival that you're going to be playing every year from your state. I mean, that's a problem. That's a real problem, and it's a problem that Jimbo and his recruiting staff need to solve. And it's tough to solve it when you're not winning games, because that's, in the case of Miller, it truly is one of the only reasons. You know, and this whole thing about, you know, like Ronnie will say it, you know, they loved A&M. You know, I mean, yeah, that's every recruit that doesn't pick your school, and every recruit that decommits. They all love the school. But, you know, when you're winning, you can recruit higher level players than when you're not. It's that simple. So, you know, I think the Aggies need to really, the bye week, on the one hand, it's a bad time because if you had a game, you could get kids on campus. But on the other hand, it's a good time. They need to really regroup on the recruiting staff right now and kind of assess what's happening in terms of not just Draylen Miller, but what's happening behind the scenes with kids waffling, and they need to get around the state, put out fires, work the phones, put out fires, and they just need to buy time, and they just need to tell kids, hang in there with us. And it's crazy. It's crazy when you think of what Kyle Field was like a week ago, and, you know, just a little over a week ago, and that you had Alabama, you're ahead of them at halftime. You basically think you're about to, you know, score. You cut the lead to 2 with 3 minutes left, and you might get the ball back and a chance to win it. And then Anaya gets called out of bounds. You have 3 bad plays, and the game's over. And a week later, you're beating Tennessee at the half, and then you can do nothing in the second half. So you lose to the number 17 and number 11 ranked team by a razor-thin margin. And we could discuss what that margin really is. We have been discussing it, but whether it pisses you off or you're okay with it or you hate it or you want coach run out of town on a rail or you're patient, whatever, wherever you fall on that spectrum, you do have to admit that these last two games were by a razor-thin margin to number 17 and number 11 and to Alabama and Tennessee on the road. This is the SEC. You lose those two games and your momentum, and I think it would have been the same even if you'd have beaten Miami. You lose those two games back-to-back, and there's always someone there ready to capitalize on the momentum. And this is especially true when you're in year 6 and you've got new / and or young coaches at other schools having a lot of success that you're competing against. And if it's not Brian Kelly at LSU, if it's not Sark at Texas, if it's not Venables at OU, all these guys are in year 2, and year 3, well, then it's Alabama or it's Georgia, So it's, Napier and Florida quietly have won some games. And by the way, they beat the Tennessee team that you lost to. And they're trying to recruit Texas hard. He's got a little momentum. So it's never ending. And it shows you what a fine line you walk. So to me, that cuts both ways, David. So OB alluded to it. If you want to, I think forget Draylon Miller. I think he goes to LSU. Your job is to make him regret that decision on the field over the next few years. Your job is to win football games against LSU. And to me, if you want to start, catching the attention of the kids that are actually on board with you still and the ones you want, you need to, you look at that Ole Miss game, you thought it was big. I'm going to tell you, it might be the biggest that Jimbo has coached if he can, at A&M anyway, if he can beat South Carolina next week, which they have to. That's not going to be a cakewalk, but they have to win that game at home. Let's say they do that. You go into Oxford, man, that is a massive, massive game. For what Lane Kiffin will do if he wins. B, for how badly Lane Kiffin wants to beat you, in the manner and style in which he wants to win that game. He'd love nothing more than in his mind to kind of end the Jimbo tenure at A&M, and I don't think that would happen with a loss to Ole Miss. I've stated what I think in terms of Fisher next year. But in his mind, that's what that guy's trying to do. He's trying to embarrass the coach. He's trying to embarrass the players. He's trying to embarrass the program, the university, all of it. And if you go win that game, by the way, that's a team that scored 14 points against Alabama, even when A&M had a miserable game in the second half. They scored 20. That's a team that barely beat Arkansas at home. It's a team that's not dominant by any means. I know they're a scary matchup for A&M. My point is it's a winnable game, and by God, if you want to sign, forget Draylon in particular, but you want to sign players like Draylon, you want to keep the class together, you go beat what's going to be a pretty damn highly ranked Ole Miss team at their place. That's it. You've got to win some of these games. You can't let the losses in this conference pile up because other teams in this conference and in this region, especially with Texas and OU getting to fatten up on the Big 12, are going to keep winning. So you're in that position, just the spot you're in. So they've got to start winning games, and Ole Miss comes in the middle of 2 home games. You want to put together a streak, quiet some of this smoke that's around everywhere, shut these articles up, let them go focus on some other things for a few weeks, then win some games. And I think you'll get the momentum back because no matter how much they talk and commiserate and meet and discuss strategy, it's fine. It'll help. But what's hurting them and hindering them are just the losses on the field. It's as simple as that because at Texas A&M, as Jimbo knows, you recruit at this certain level where every kid you're recruiting can go to several winning programs at once. you name the winning program, they can go there because that's the level you're recruiting at. And they're fighting a thing right now, which teams are saying, forget about A&M and their recruiting. They recruit all these players and they can't win. That's what they're saying. And then when you're on the field, these kids are watching that with that planted in their head, and they watch it and it confirms it in their mind. So they've got to start winning games like the one they'll play in a couple weeks in Oxford. And, oh, by the way, also like the one you go play in Baton Rouge, as far-fetched as that may sound today.
Billy, let's close with this. Not just winning games, and I hate doing the what if, but what if they're winning games and they're scoring points again, right? Like that kind of changes the whole narrative, right?
No doubt. And the offense, look, it's not coincidence that the first guy to decommit is wide receiver offensively. And by the way, you have to hang on to your receivers that you have on campus and all your players. Those are going to be some of your big recruiting battles as well. And especially when frustration sets in, man. And it's, the offense has got to figure it out. The offensive line, I mean, we could say it's an issue, and we know it is. But it all ties together, and you're going to have a hard sell to, just like you're going to sell Connor Wigman to a receiver recruit, right? You're going to have a hard sell going, hey, man, the only reason this offense isn't explosive is because we can't block anybody. Because, A, that makes no sense because I'd just say, well, when are we going to block somebody? B, that's not how the kids are looking at it. They're just watching the game, and they're looking at wins and losses, and they're looking at stats and comparing them to other programs' stats. That's what they're doing. I mean, that's what receivers do. That's what running backs do. So it is what it is. I mean, they just have to play better on offense, whatever it takes. If they had a shaky offensive line and they'd scored 30 the last couple weeks, and you're going, damn, we should have scored 42. Or if they scored 28 the last 2 weeks with a shaky offensive line and inconsistent offense, and they were sitting at 6-1, I bet he'd be committed today. Same receiving numbers. Whatever you want to call it, I bet he'd be committed today.
Billy, thank you for your insight, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right, buddy.
Later. Billy Liucci on the hotline. The latest. Just go score some points, guys, and win games. You got to do both. Don't just win games because your defense. You got to score some points and then win some games. Right now, we're talking Charge Apparel, Aggie-owned, purpose-driven apparel brand. They donate 12% of their total sales to organizations that do support U.S. veterans and mental health initiatives. The clothes fit great, slightly tailored fit. It doesn't matter your size, tall, short, skinny, and the other side, as I've mentioned before. The clothes will fit you amazingly. You should check it out. The maroon polo is my favorite. It's for obvious reasons, but it fits good. It looks good. The gray one, they got other colors as well. If you go check out the website, I think you're going to love what they stand for and the clothing, right? At the end of the day, is what does it look like? What's the material like? It's the top, fabrics out there. So you get the top fabrics out there that looks great, and they got their Aggies, 2 Aggies that, love this university and have created an awesome company. You want to go support Aggies, right? And that's why I want you to go check out The Charge Apparel. The website is thechargeapparel.com. Find them on Instagram, The Charge Apparel, or on X, The Charge Brand. OB, I don't think we have enough time to do the power rankings. Why don't you save that for Nick tomorrow and Luke? But let's just close it out. It's TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. The last thing I talked about with Billy was it's not just winning, OB, right? Like, yeah, I want them to win games. But if they want to continue to get these Evan Stewarts of the world, keep the Draylon Millers of the world, and I know that Connor's not there. To me, it doesn't matter. You got to show some kind of offense the rest of the way. You need to score 50 on – okay, maybe not 50. Give me 35 on South Carolina.
Show some imagination. Do some things that you haven't done before. Throw in a trick play here and there. Just a jet sweep. Show some imagination that you can do things with your receivers because, style points don't help you win games, but style points does help you win recruits.
Yeah, you're exactly right. OB, I want you to answer this question. We go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Randall Salado has one, and I would like for our friend Kennedy Cavan to read it out loud.
Yes. Randall and Salado said, what has changed since the 3 overtime win against LSU to today? Certainly, coaches haven't forgotten how to coach offense. Players seem just as good or better.
Well, first of all, let's take that LSU game out.
Okay.
But before LSU, there was all kinds of offensive issues. After LSU, there's been offensive issues. So what has changed? Devon Achane's not here.
OB, also, I think college football's changed, right? And I'm not saying that's why the offense necessarily has struggled, but I feel like there's chapters in this book, and we're on a new chapter, and the old way isn't working today. And it kind of worked, but it's not working right now.
Yeah, like I said, I'd like to see them open some things up and get some imagination, throw a trick play or gadget here and there. But I go back to I've watched them move the ball between the 20s. Okay, so it's a lot of things. It's the offensive line should be blocking better. The scheme don't matter. Scheme could be better. You could open it up more. You could, but you know what? You've also got to. I mean, it's a common Jimbo refrain, but it's true. You got to stop sabotaging your own offense with your own ridiculous mistakes that just accumulate. Because, we saw them move the ball against Tennessee. What, they get in the red zone 3 times and have 1 touchdown, right? We saw them in the previous game against Alabama, 4 times in the red zone, 1 touchdown. I think that was right.
Yep.
So they're moving the ball.
Not enough.
It might be up here as much as it is in the strength.
Enjoy the rest of your time in Alabama, brother. I'll be off tomorrow. I know you'll be helping out the show. And just if you're curious about listening, Peter Burns had to cancel today, so SEC Mike has decided to come on the show at 10:35. And I think we're like buds now. We may agree on some things.
There's a lot to probably agree on right now.
Thank you, OB.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back on TexAgs Radio, John Harris has got some opinions. That's next. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, and we are here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. And it's interesting. Not all things are bad. Right? The Aggies are losing, and the Astros are losing too. Huh? But the Texans are winning, if you're into that. The Cowboys are winning. The Rangers are winning, if you're into that. So, there is some good for our listeners. Our next guest is all about the H-Town. We go to the hotline. We're joined by John Harris, Houston Texans sideline reporter, footballtakeover.com, coach extraordinaire, got opinions, got it all. Good morning, Johnny.
Good morning, David. You had me going there until you started talking about the Rangers winning. It's funny. I don't mind the Cowboys. I've said that to people in Houston. They're like, "What's wrong with you?" I don't mind the Cowboys. I don't know. Jerry's kind of grandfatherly. I don't know. Whatever. He's harmless to me. I don't know why. I think it's more the Cowboys fans that people in Houston don't care for. But something about the Rangers, it makes my skin crawl. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. The Cowboys, I'm actually okay with. I'm fine. And maybe it is because we only play them once every 4 years. That if we were ever to meet in the Super Bowl, maybe it'd be a different story. But I don't know. Cowboys fans are fine. It's the Rangers fans that get me going. But you're right. The sky's not falling, at least not yet in certain places. And we're sitting at 3-3, and I can tell you the Texans fans, there are a lot of them that never saw 3-3 coming. That's for sure.
Well, we'll get into some Texans talk, but let's start off with this. I don't know, Johnny. Train wreck is. I don't know. It's not that they lost to Bama, and not that they lost to Tennessee. It's the way they're losing these games, and the fact that this program should be held to a higher standard. I think they're held to that higher standard, but we should demand it, we should expect it, and we should see it.
Yeah, you're exactly right, David. I think, it's interesting because we've had this conversation here with the Texans. The word expectations. Expectations can be really tricky for a team. And I think what ends up happening, I know, when a team is talented, and you can't look at A&M and go, well, they don't have enough talent. No. They have plenty of talent. All you got to do is look at the recruiting rankings. Now, you can, in some cases, think about recruiting rankings and go, well, those things don't matter a whole heck of a lot, do they? Yeah, they more so now than ever before, because you have more eyes on high school players now, seemingly, than ever before. There are more ways that you can get eyes on a football game than you ever could. Back in the day, it really was about a couple of people. Tom Lemming in particular was one, and a few people that you just kind of want a reputation in some sense. So they've got as much talent as you're going to find in any team in the country. But why is it not coming together, David? I mean, maybe you need that. I think back to the COVID year, 2020. And, it's not going great. It's going okay. But then they beat Florida. It was like that win over Florida, it triggered something. And then they played at that level all year long. But it's like they've got even more talent now, but it just feels like the puzzle pieces aren't going together. And it's like you got all of them, right? But why won't this piece go with this piece? And then you look at the game the other day, and you give up a punt return for a touchdown. You have 10 plus penalties. I think they said in the broadcast it was like the fourth time for a Jimbo Fisher team since 2021. 10 penalties it's inexcusable. And look, you're right, David. Losing to Alabama, that's happened a lot, and it's happened to a lot of really good SEC teams. Losing to Tennessee at Neyland under Josh Heupel has happened to a lot of SEC teams. But when the games are winnable, and when you have the talent, and when you're paying your coach and your coaching staff a lot of freaking money, Aggies should demand a return on their investment, right? My investment sometimes isn't just money, it's time, it's being a fan. I am wholly invested in this as an Aggie, and I'm not getting that return back. Why? What is it? And sometimes you just can't put your finger on it. But you just watch, and there's some things you go, okay, offensive line, again, is struggling. The other side, Tennessee's got a really good – you asked me that last week. How good is Tennessee's defensive line? I said, well, I think Alabama's is better. They're better on the edges. But, man, Tennessee's defensive line is really good. the offensive line did some things that they could do better regardless of who they're playing against. I mean, Lane Robinson stepping on Max's foot. Max has got to get out from center. He's too slow. There's like one thing here, one thing there. And before you know it, those are the ones that end up being the 5 or 6 key plays in the game, and you get cooked. You end up losing a game that you probably should end up winning. You miss a field goal when you're down 14-13. I mean, it's just those things, David. You watch a series of 10 plays, and you're like, the Aggies dominate 9 of them. Man, the defensive line, they can't block this defensive line. Joe Milton is throwing in straps in the secondary. And then there's that one play. They miss a tackle, another missed tackle, and then all of a sudden it's a 35-yard gain. You're like, wait, where did that come from? We're dominating this game. And what just happened? And I just feel like it's some of those moments. I mean, the defense gave up 13 points. I don't care who you're playing. You give up 13 points, you should win the game. You should win the football game, especially with the talent that's on that offensive side. And there's definitely something missing on the offensive side. Wide receivers are not open. I mean, there's no separation with receivers, which I find odd because it's a really good group. There's no quick game, David. How do you help a quarterback? Where's the quick game?
Yes.
Why is there no 3-step? Where's the quick game to help your offensive line? Obviously, you had a player's father asking why you weren't throwing to a running back out of the backfield, which that makes some sense too. Max gets the absolute what beat out of him. Now, some of it is his fault because he's holding the ball so long and he's not making quick decisions. But where's the quick game? I mean, I know it's hard, but it's hard to master. But you've got guys that can shake somebody and run a slant, right? Stick it on him, that's 7 yards. It's just like there's all the pieces are there, but it's not coming together. And I wish I could put my finger on it. It's one thing. I feel like everybody sort of shares in that, except for, maybe the front seven, but third down play and Shmar gets the roughing the passer. And I know it's tough. It's a questionable call, but those are things that you have to adapt to playing in today's game. And he's second-year player. He's been playing for a while. You got to know you can't go up high on a quarterback like that. It's just those things, but I can't fault Shmar because he plays his guts out. And he's been playing really well. So I just feel like there's too much talent to be playing this particular way. And I think that's maybe what makes it more frustrating, David, if I'm an Aggie supporter. And I like to think I'm kind of a pseudo Aggie supporter. I watch the game really frustrated. I'm like, dang it, why dominate these 2 plays and then get beat on this play? And that's the play that ends up beating you. And look, there's also some luck that goes into it. That third down play where the pass breakup and then 34 ends up catching the ball off the tip. Come on, man. Look, so there's some bad luck involved in some of that, but you also make your own luck too. And you had an opportunity to take the lead at 16-14 with all those things going on we talked about. Make a field goal, it's 16-14. You miss a field goal. And now, again, you're back chasing for the rest of the fourth quarter. And that's obviously not where you want to be.
Johnny, so it's not as simple, or is it maybe, as the O-line or the blocking in general, because running backs are missing their blocks. Like, if you could semi-fix that part of it, this is a better offense.
There's no question. But even with an offensive line, and I'll use the Texans for example, David, and I haven't been able to do this for a while, so I'm going to. We went into a game against T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith, and we had Austin Deculus and Jaron Christian playing left tackle against Alex Highsmith. And we had George Fant, who's actually played pretty well. We've got George Fant, and we've got those 2 rotating at left tackle against T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith, 2 of the better players in the National Football League, and we gave up 0 sacks. Why? Because we coached knowing, hey, this offensive line is not where we want it to be, so we got to adjust. And in adjusting, we can help. So what they do, they chipped, they doubled. They had to take a tight end sometimes out of the pass routes to help them. And they slowed them down enough to a point where at the end or near the end of the game, they were able to kind of handle some of that one-on-one. I don't think their help. Almost every single play with Max is a deep drop, and then he's holding the ball. So the offensive line is really hamstrung. They're like up there having to hold their block for 3.5, 4 seconds. And I don't think it's a great offensive line to begin with, but it can be made better by giving them a few more ingredients that would help. Like, hey, let's take 3-step and stick it. Let's take, the snap and throw a quick bubble screen. Let's slow these guys down. Let's not get in third and long where all of a sudden you start seeing exotics from Tennessee where they're bringing Beasley, who's one of the better blitzers in the league. Well, we're worried about Beasley, so now everybody else is one-on-one. Well, those guys are going to win because they're really good up front for Tennessee. So you can help your group out. I don't know how you could watch the A&M offensive line as closely as you have the last few weeks and go, yeah, 5 to 7 step drops, deep play action. That's the way to go. No. You've got to help that group out. And I think that's the frustrating aspect. If I know that I'm an A&M lineman, I got to go up against these dudes and I got to hold my block for 3.5, 4 seconds. That's tough. Now, there are times where they're getting beat single-handedly, one-on-one, just beat, inside move. Barron, I think, threw an inside move on the right tackle, and he didn't even slow down. It was like he burst off the snap. It was like he threw hands. He was inside. There's nothing that Bobby Petrino or anybody can do for that. That happens. But there are plenty of times where Max is back there just patting the ball, and he's already 7 yards deep, taking a 7-step drop. Like, that ball needs to be out. So, it's everybody kind of shares in that. Offensive line is having some breakdowns. Max is holding the ball too long. Where are the receivers? And where's their separation? Where's his outlet throw? So all of that kind of plays into it. And where's the quick game to help? That's just kind of frustrating watching as an interested observer from afar, knowing those things aren't happening offensively. And I feel bad not even bringing up the defense because, look, the defense is going to share in a loss. It happens. There's a tackling mishap here or there. But, man, I can't fault the defense. Those dudes are playing their guts out. They had no right to fly home from Neyland Stadium with an L. They gave 13 points to that offense. That offense has put up numbers on people this year. They gave 13 points. They should have flown home with a W. But offensively, it's not coming together. And there's really no shame in that. They've got the best wide receiver group in the SEC, minus maybe LSU. Running backs should be able to be explosive, but they've got to take a good look during this bye week, David. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we've got. And maybe what you thought worked with Connor, maybe it isn't going to work with Max. So you got to go back to the drawing board and find, this is what Max does well. Let's make that work. But the one thing Max has to do is he's got to speed things up. It has to speed up. I mean, even stepping away from center. I know it happens. I mean, I've talked to every quarterback I know. They talk, I get stepped on all the time. Well, if you know that you're going to end up running that play to that side, you might change your position, but you got to get out from under center. You can't just stand there and his first step was with his left foot, and all of a sudden his right foot is there in concrete. Well, Layden's going to step on it. So anyhow, there's just a lot going into the offensive booyah of mistakes. I'll put it that way.
Johnny, here's one for you. And it goes back to the O-line. Why is the O-line not good? And before you answer that, look, there's some we saw the recruiting rankings. We know what they are. Did they miss on guys? Did they? And I don't want to single people out. I'm just saying, is it the scheme? Why is it not better from an O-line? And I agree with you. Max holds up too long, and 2.5 seconds, you got to get rid of the ball. And they're getting that a lot of times. So they are doing their job many times, but it feels like there's too many breakdowns.
Yeah, absolutely. And David, I wish I could put my finger on it. I really don't. I mean, I watch it and I'm like, okay, here's a couple of times where Max has got all freaking day to throw. Those guys are providing that. Man, they brought 5 on this play and they picked this protection up. Boy, this is pretty good. You can see natural ability and natural talent that's there. But, I think it's so hard to put a finger on it, David, because I see some of those guys okay, I think Layden Robinson's going to come to the league. And I know he probably, his reputation probably the last couple of years is probably not what it was. But I think Layden Robinson They put Lane Robinson with the San Francisco 49ers, and he probably is going to a Pro Bowl within his first 3 years. So it's. I don't think it's a talent issue. But Basantis, I mean, what year is Basantis? He's
Freshman.
young, right?
He's a freshman.
Yeah, freshman, right? So who did he see when he was in high school? He didn't see Tyler Barron, right?
Right.
So it takes guys a little bit, especially on the offensive line. You don't just throw guys in. I mean, that's why I think, Kenyon Green was special. You threw Kenyon Green in there. But Kenyon was playing on a line that had 4 dudes that have been together like 2-3 years together, and you plop Kenyon, who's just a natural athlete and a natural player, and he just kind of picks up because he was at that particular level. But freshmen struggle. Guys that are hurt from year to year, Bryce missed a lot of last year. So, he's trying to get back to where he was. And it's really just kind of disjointed with everything up front. I think Layden probably isn't playing as we would expect. Basantis is struggling as a freshman. I really expected Bryce to play a little bit better. I think the left side, I mean, it's been tough. And then, going back to Basantis, you're also, rotating some guys in there. And so one big sack of the game, they're handling a TE stunt. It's just the 2 of them. It's something they work on all the time. And both guys end up getting beat by it. And it's like, dang it. So I think it's easy to say, well, it's coaching because, these guys were all 4 and 5 stars. They're all really high-level recruits. But I don't always want to put it on coaching. But obviously coaching has to play a role in this. And all of it has to come to play, like scheme. Scheme has to help them a little bit more. To be able to have to hold those blocks for so long with such long dropbacks and play action, ball's got to come out of there. And that will help them out. If the ball's coming out there in 2.5 seconds, man, that's going to help them out in a big, big way. So that definitely helps. I think there are some things that you have to adjust to. You can't be stubborn as a coach and just go, you know what? No, this is what we do, and they're going to do it or they're not. Well, hubris and stubbornness get you fired. And I hate to say it that way because I'm coach's son. I've seen it. My dad never got fired because of stubbornness, but I've seen other coaches that were on his staff and on different staffs that were just like, nope, we do it this way. We're going to do it this way. So you got to start thinking differently. And like I said, using the example of us against the Steelers, there's no way TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith should have left NRG Stadium with 0 sacks against that offensive line. But because it was schemed up, it was coached properly, they got it done that day. And, I mean, it's not happening. And I think it's a bouillabaisse of mistakes for everybody. Everybody takes accountability for that. I think that the talent is there. I definitely think that. But it's not coming together. And I do think there's some young guys that are struggling. And I do think the coaching staff's got to find a way to help them out and help them out in a big way.
Johnny, let me close out with this. You mentioned the wide receivers aren't getting separation. Help me understand the why that happens when you're talking about elite talent.
Well, I think, sometimes in college football, what the defensive backs get away with, what the defensive backs get away with in college football compared to what they get away with in the NFL is kind of murder. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it kind of is that way. So defensive backs are just clamping, grabbing, clutching, and the refs aren't going to call it all the time. So I mean, there's some of that, but also, when you watch Tennessee, now Tennessee's offense wasn't great because Joe Milton has been, he's been, I don't want to say disgustingly bad, but he hasn't been good. But what you see with Tennessee, for them to get separation, they run a lot of switch routes, and it really can kind of, play with your coverage abilities. And so there's some of those things. I mean, I see some of that from the offense. I don't see a ton, but when you get separation, you get guys open. You know what? You got to go catch the football. Evan dropped the big one early in the game. Look, receivers are going to have drops, but when Max is getting beat out of him, man, you got to bail your quarterback out a little bit. Like, hey, Max, I know you just got hit in the helmet, hit in the spleen, sprained an ankle, but I made that catch for you on 3rd down. So some of those things. And I'd be interested to go back and watch a little bit more of the All-22. But why is Max holding the ball so long? What it just feels like, and I watched. There was one play, they were going right to left. It was like a 3rd down and 7 play, I think. and I'm watching the receivers. And by the time that Max got to the top of his drop, Anias was 2 yards off the ball, still trying to run around the Tennessee slot corner. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, you got to go. You got to run your routes. You got to explosively get there. And not that I want to use the Texans for everything, but that's the one difference. I've talked to Nico Collins and a few others about running their routes, and they're like, man, they coached us this year. We run our routes 100%. It is precise. It is bang, bang. We are going 100%. And all of a sudden, they're getting separation. They're not guys that are tremendously fast. But I feel like some younger receivers get so caught up in, watch me throw this and one crossover move. Watch me do this. It's man coverage. So, boom, I'm going to buzz my feet at the line of scrimmage. No, you got to go. You can't mess around. This isn't destroying on YouTube where you're backing up and then you're doing all this number and then you got – no, you got to go. This is the SEC where these defensive linemen are eat up your offensive line if you don't go right now. And I don't know that's 100% of the problem, but Tennessee played a decent amount of man or man match, and I wasn't seeing Aggies getting a ton of separation. Balls were thrown downfield. Noah Thomas made a couple of great catches. I just wasn't seeing anybody kind of run away from anybody. So part of that scheme, part of that's wide receivers. And look, it can be as simple as you got to run your routes harder. Number two, you got to work to get separation explosively and quickly. You can't mess around. And all that, I think, is probably contributing a little bit because this receiver group should be open all day. They should be 7-11 Jamar Chase, and they're not right now. And I wonder, all of that sort of plays a role. But they got to start getting some separation for Max and give him opportunities. And Max has got to throw them into open spots too. And they're going to have to start catching contested passes with regularity. Guys not named Noah Thomas, who ended up coming up with 2 when he was completely being mauled by a Tennessee DB down the field.
Johnny, thank you so much, brother. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother.
Later, bro. John Harris, footballtakeover.com, Houston Texans sideline reporter. Right now, the future of joint pain relief is here. QC Kinetics, advanced regenerative medicine. It is amazing stuff. If you've been told steroids are the way to go, dude, check out another option. You've been told surgery. No, I talked to my mom about it just this week and last week as well. No, there are other options. You should explore your options so you can live life to the fullest, so you can go back to walking the neighborhood, jumping rope, climbing trees, throwing the football with your kids, just enjoying moving, right? Like getting from the couch to the upstairs or wherever it may be, and that's what QC Kinetics can do for you. They get to the very root of the problem using concentrated healing properties placed directly into that joint to repair and restore that damaged tissue. So imagine living life this fall and winter like you used to, right? Doing the things you love to do with no drugs, no downtime, no surgery. Call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics today for a free consultation. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. That number is 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That is 979-452-6000. Yeah, it is Bad Bunny. Why do you got a problem with it?
I don't have a problem with Bad Bunny.
Why'd you say it like that? You're like, what is this?
Well, because like before we went on air, he was like, he said yeah,
words.
yeah. And I was like, what?
What?
You singing? Are you a singer now?
Nope.
Are you ditching the whole radio host thing and you're going to go travel the world and sing?
See, you put me in a box as a radio host. You don't realize that I am not only a television host, a radio host, jiu-jitsu destroyer, kickboxing extraordinaire.
Kickboxing.
What else am I?
Batman.
Batman. Earlier today, I was Clark Kent with my glasses.
Hey, Halloween's coming up. You could be Batman this year.
I'm Bruce Wayne ask my kids, every Halloween I'm Bruce Wayne.
Oh, I thought you were about to say every day.
Well, I mean, I am, technically. And I know there's somebody out there who's like, whoa, there he goes again talking about Batman. Loser. He's 47. He still likes Batman.
Superman is the one that wears the like Clark Kent wears the glasses. I was going to say, that's with your new whole glasses thing that you've got going on.
It's an amazing thing how glasses make you think it's somebody else. It's amazing. Just put them on, like, oh, who is that? I don't know. Take them out. Oh, it's David.
It's like Perry the Platypus.
Pardon what?
You've never seen Phineas and Ferb?
I got the reference, Kennedy. That's
my kids watch Phineas and Ferb. Yeah. No, I mean...
I'll explain after we're not on air anymore.
No, you explain something that you're working on.
Perry the Platypus!
Who did that? Was that Nick?
I think that was Nick.
Nick, I don't know that
Who
side
else
of
would
you.
it be?
I don't know. Like, I know serious Nick. I don't know, like, crazy Nick. I don't know that side of you.
That was... You look
that
like
was
one of
my
those
Dr.
things that
Doofenshmirtz
sit
impersonation.
in front of the car dealerships.
Oh, yeah. I could see you doing that as a job. I could see that.
I'm looking for one. It might be my only choice.
Aggies, holler at your girl if you're trying to hire somebody who's awesome at life. Miss Cabin, you told me a term you're working on at school that I've never heard before. Say it again. What's the term?
Nick will also know what this is, hopefully. It's called a Kahoot.
Nick, do you know what
I do.
Like,
Yeah.
we're in cahoots. I know that.
No. A Kahoot is like a little quiz game that you play. It's from one of my journalism
I know
classes.
Quizlets.
You walk into a classroom and you see Kahoot, it's going to be a good day.
It's going to be a good day.
Why is that a good... What?
It's just like a fun little game, and like there's typically like an incentive at the end, like a treat or something that your teachers
like a
would
Quizlet.
give you. Kind of, but more of like a game style. It like counts down and you have to select the right answer. The quicker you select the right answer, the more points you get.
Can they do this for offensive line blocking?
I mean, they could.
Okay.
I mean, it's a possibility.
So, on this show, you've heard me sometimes respond to people that are mean. This is what I do, right? And you know who you are. Like, if you don't have to make things personal. Some people do. And when you make it personal, I come after you. That's just how I roll. I mean, I Google you. I find out every bit of information. I call my friends at the FBI. Whatever I have to do to get to the bottom of it. But I must say, there are many super nice people. I'm a believer. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. When I watch Stephen A. Smith and I don't agree with him, I don't like send him a mean message. You suck, man. I hate your takes, bro. It's just not how I roll. But whatever. I have like sent people like things that I like, right? I think this, and I got a handwritten letter that came in today from Warren Whitsley, I believe is how you pronounce it. Couldn't have been nicer. He wrote it right before the Tennessee game, and he had mentioned how much he enjoyed the final countdown. So thank you to Warren Whitsley for a handwritten note. I know that Buzz Williams would appreciate that as well. It is nice to not only get compliments sometimes, but just handwritten note, like not even an email. Do you do handwritten? I know you told me you once you had pen pals, right? Kevin?
Like in like elementary school, we had pen pals.
When's the last time you wrote a handwritten letter?
I don't know.
Ever?
Oh, like ever? Yes, of course.
Do you know how to address a stamp? I mean, like a mail. You know how to do that.
Well, yeah, they teach you that in school. That's one of the very useful things.
Not
that
to Luke and to Cade. They didn't teach them that.
They skipped that up in the Dallas area apparently, because I don't know if Cade's from up in Dallas, but
he's from the Colorado area.
Okay, well, up north they don't teach you how to
what they're doing
how to address mail correctly.
So thank you to nice people out there, and I appreciate the mean ones as well. As long as you're listening and consuming the content, and hopefully we evoke a little bit of emotion, it's not a bad thing. So thank you very much. Let's hit a break. We'll come back with Coach G on a mobile, the real Coach G. Right now we're talking Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. Get your vehicle on at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. So when you're at a point in life where it's time to get a vehicle, it could be because you have kids like we do that are going to be driving here over the next year? Well, Caldwell Country Chevrolet would be a good place to go. Maybe you're like, I'm not buying my kids a car. Whatevers. I'll buy myself a car and give them the older car. Great move. Highly recommend that move as well. Seriously considering that move when it's our turn. That being said, you can go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They got great deals, great customer service, great people that work there. Boom. Selection's amazing. Also with a great trade-in value. And remember, it is not a far drive. We're talking 15 minutes from the very edge of Bryan to the very edge of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the good people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. All right, we are 1 day, 9 hours, 23 minutes, and 32 seconds away from the final regular season game for Aggie soccer this season. Regular season home game, I should say. They still got some games on the road. And then hopefully a deep, deep run there in the NCAA tournament. Let's go to the hotline. We're joined by Coach G here on TexAgs Radio. Coach G, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Beautiful day. And we got some big games ahead of us, so it's an exciting time.
So let's talk about where things are right now. How are you feeling with the current state of the team, the way you all have played here, managing some tough road trips, and where things stand as we head into the South Carolina game?
Well, we are in first place in the SEC West, so I feel good about that. We are in pole position to get the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament. I feel pretty good about that. But it's a tough road, and starting with this game on Thursday with South Carolina coming into town, they've only got 1 loss on the season. They've only had 8 goals scored against them all season long. They're a really, really tough nut to crack. They've got some legitimate big time goal scorers up front with Cat Berry, who's a 6 foot strong, powerful goal scorer that we're going to have to deal with in their attack. And like I said, they're a really polished, gritty team. So that's our home game, and then getting any kind of results on the road is proven to always be difficult in this league. Everyone is it's just such a tight contest everywhere you go, and going to Tennessee is not easy, and going to Baton Rouge is not easy. So we're only focused on the game on Thursday right now, and getting 3 points at home would be absolutely huge for us obviously from an SEC standpoint, but also from NCAA tournament standpoint. It would be huge on both points.
Talking to Coach G here on TexAgs Radio. So the last time you were at home was that Alabama game. I believe they were ranked in the same area that South Carolina is. Defensive game up until the team erupted. So talk a little bit about that killer instinct that showed up there in the Alabama game that you hope to bottle up and use this weekend.
Well, in that game, and then also our road game on this past Friday at Auburn. I mean, the fight of the team has been outstanding. They think the players have figured out that you're going to survive in the SEC. You got to come to fight, and you got to come to battle, and that was what we saw the last time out at Ellis, was just that grit and that determination that we're not going to lay down. We're not going to do anything less than what it takes to have a record performance as far as our physical output. And we monitor everything that we do through our GPS units, the catapult units in our system. And there was a lot of record outputs in that Alabama game, and that's kind of the standard that we want by the players. So our defense has been really stout with our young back line. Kenna Caldwell has had a couple terrific games in a row now, and she'll be in goal for us again tomorrow night. It's senior night, so her and 7 other seniors will be highlighted before the match. I think that's always a really emotional, high energy type of night for us. So I think that'll help us out. There's a lot of great promotions. We're hoping that the crowd will be out there. It's there's a lot of things that are in our favor, but it's a big night for us, and it's one that we need the 12th man out there. That anything we can do to amp up our players is what's going to take for tomorrow night, because again, so much good can come from this game. We're in a great position right now RPI wise and we've got a great resume for the NCAA tournament selection committee, but this will be another top 40 win for us, which the NCAA selection committee loves. So that's what these guys are. The only loss that this team has is to a top 5 team in North Carolina was a 2-1 loss to UNC early in the year. Other than that, they're undefeated. So this is exactly the kind of resume builder that we want to go along with 2 top 15 wins in Alabama and Mississippi State. So all to play for.
Coach G, it's to me, I find it like the season, the SEC season is like a latte, right? Or it's like a shot, so quick. Here we are. It's the last home game of the regular season. I mean, just to me, it just went by like that. Just your thoughts on it already being this point of the season.
Well, it's kind of that way every year. David, every year people are going, man, you guys are doing so well. I gotta get out to one of your games sometime. And I'm always like at this time of year going, well, Thursday should be the day that you come out because it's the last regular season home game. And they're like, say what? Like, yeah, this is the time. It's this Thursday could be the last chance that you have to see this incredible group out there, because there's no guarantees that we're going to be, in the NCAA tournament, because you never know what people are going to select. And there's no guarantees that they're going to have us at home. So this is your opportunity. And this is a great group. It's a wonderful group of seniors. We're going to be, honoring them 15 minutes before kickoff. Kickoff's at 7:00. It's half price concessions when the concessions open at 6:00. It's they're going to be giving away T-shirts to the first 400 people who come through the gates. There's going to be all kinds of other giveaways throughout the match. So, it's a cheap date night. It's going to be great weather tomorrow night for the 7:00 kickoff. So this is your chance, folks, and it's Texas A&M fighting for another championship. Again, we're in first place in the West, so come out and support these women. They are fighting for us. So women's football going for another championship is hopefully enough of a carrot to bring the 12th man out.
And there's no room to relax, right? Because you end the season with some very tough matches as well. I know you want to focus on South Carolina, but then on the road at Tennessee, on the road at LSU. So still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, I mean the floor could cave in on us, or the ceiling could open up for us. There's a lot of pros or cons that could happen, and it really is that close in the standings from third place to eighth place is within just a few points. So a lot of mudslinging going on, and we want to make sure that we are taking care of our business, especially at home. This is our last chance to get points at home, so we want to take advantage of it. It's just that we're playing a really good team, and we got to really focus and keep our concentration and our grit going throughout the 90 minutes.
G, I appreciate your time, sir. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
See you. Coach G on the hotline. Go support those Aggies. I'll be there at the game. Right now, we're going to hit a break. Bronny's going to join us. Kendall Rogers is going to join us. He had the top 100 assistants in college baseball. A&M had 3 of those, so we'll talk a little bit about that with Kendall Rogers there. But right now, we're talking about the Association of Former Students. If you're looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, then check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during events held throughout the year. Marquee events like Aggie Ring Day, All Aggie Hullabaloo gathering, and they all welcome tens of thousands of guests out there with many sponsorship and vendor opportunities available to get your brand in front of attendees. All events offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand. Options include title sponsorship naming, on-site presence and activation, recognition in social media posts, and much, much more. There's also advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie Magazine and Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with other Aggies, choose a partner with the organization that's been supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information and options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. We are back, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Bronny's in studio. Hello, Ryan.
Good morning.
So you alerted me, I think, list of 100 top assistants in college baseball. A&M and Vandy both had 3, you were telling me.
The only 2 programs on their list that had all 3 assistant coaches in the top 100.
Pretty good. So let's go to the hotline and talk to the man who is a part of that article. Kendall, good morning. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
From the baseball sense and basketball sense, good. From those 2 parts, doing really well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I saw overnight. Bronny's job's got a little more difficult the last 3 days.
I've got baseball this weekend, dude.
Okay, there we go. That's I can promise you will see improvement in baseball in 2024.
So, hey, Kendall, let's just get into this piece here because, a lot of us are going to get to know Max Weiner this year. But overall, A&M getting 3 of the top guys. Just what does that say about the staff that Schloss has been able to keep and add to?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is, when he put together his original staff, Nolan Kane was like one of the first names I thought they should hire. I think when you look at the guy, he won a national championship at LSU, was part of championship clubs as a coach at LSU, recruited nationally. He's obviously recruited at an extremely high level at A&M. I think anybody that knows Nolan or has talked to Nolan knows he's an absolute natural at this job. I think he's going to be a rock star someday as a head coach. I think if it's Jim Schlossnagle, you're hoping he win a national championship, and then he becomes a head coach. But, I think the helium for him is, very high. Michael Early, one of the biggest, retentions is keeping, Michael Early a couple of years ago. He was in the mix for the Memphis coaching job. He certainly, when Tracy Smith with the Michigan had an opportunity to get up there as a full-time assistant, decided to stay at A&M. Now he's a full-time assistant with the new rules. And so, he is certainly just has a great cachet in the industry, particularly from an offensive standpoint. And then the guy that I think some people might be a little surprised that was on that list was Max Weiner. And I think he's a coach that, and I did not put him on there lightly. I think, anybody would say, hey, as a college coach, he's unproven. But I will say this. I talked to scouting directors, I talked to people in pro ball, and everybody came to the same conclusion that he was a slam dunk superstar. And so that's why he made the list. We'll see what the results are on the field. But I can tell you just from listening to him talk about, his strategy, his approach, and things like that, I'm pretty impressed. Like it sounds like some of the better pitching minds that I hear in the industry. So in essence, it's just a very good coaching staff, and it goes much deeper than that. Whether it's Will Fox and Chuck and guys like that, it's just a very well-rounded staff, which is kind of Jim's hallmark. He even look back at his TCU days, he put together some outstanding coaching staff that's continued at A&M.
Yeah, Kendall, we're getting to the point of the fall where I think the scouts have been out for a lot of fall practices across the region, across the country. You and your team have been able to get out and see a lot of teams practice. What do you think of A&M right now heading into their final weeks of fall and turning the corner into spring in your assessment of the overall talent that's on the roster right now?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Bronny. I was looking at the box score from the Houston Christian scrimmage a couple weeks ago, and I think the number one thing that stood out to me was that for the most part, the command on the pitching staff was pretty good. If you look back at last year, that was their bugaboo. I mean, if A&M doesn't have just an outrageous number of walks, their season goes much differently. I even think back to, was it the Auburn series that they almost swept? And the only reason the last game was even competitive is because they just kept walking people. And so that really would have changed the dynamic of A&M's entire season. And I think if you look back at that scrimmage, 5 walks in 14 innings, that's not bad. That's an improvement. And, I think the biggest thing for me is looking at a guy like Chris Cortez, who had no walks in that scrimmage. He to me, guys, is the X factor. There's no doubt that, if you look at, Tanner Jones and Troy Watson, I think he's a guy that's going to take a big step forward. But if I can circle one player or, overall player in this entire team that can make A&M go from a postseason super regional caliber club to a Final Four caliber club like they were 2 years ago, I think it's Cortez, because he's got just unlimited arm strength. The slider can be nasty, but again, can he harness his stuff? And that's going to be the big thing for Max Weiner as we progress to the fall, go into spring. Is can he get Cortez to command his stuff? If he can, I'll see A&M on Friday against U of H, so I can't really have like a final conclusion. But like I like the look of this lineup. Like, you add Braden Montgomery in the middle of that lineup. It sounds like guys like Jack Bell and Grahovic have been really solid this fall. Bronny can speak to that more than I can, but it sounds like some of the new pieces have done a really nice job. And reading your report last night, it looks like Braden's kind of heated up a little bit. So I like just from afar, I like the look of the lineup. The key again is going to be commanding the zone as a pitching staff. I think A&M will be vastly improved on the mound. I may be wrong, but that's what it kind of seems like to me.
What is your assessment on their transfer class? I mean, you spoke about Braden Montgomery. We all know #1 player in y'all's list in the transfer portal, but I think A&M had 3 in the top 15 on you guys' list. Your overall quick thoughts on what Schloss was able to bring in to kind of enhance and fill in the gaps with that freshman class and the returners.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was getting a couple of those freshmen to school, and also getting 2 or 3 relievers on campus, and then you throw in Braden Montgomery, he was the bell cow. The question for me is I'm actually intrigued to see if he ends up pitching in a pretty prominent role for A&M in the spring. Can Max Weiner help him take that next step as a pitcher? So they had a really, I would say, a top 5 transfer class, and the thing I liked about it too, there's a lot of depth present.
Kendall, we appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, buddy.
We'll talk to you soon.
You got it, boys. Good talking to you.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir. Kendall Rogers, D1 Baseball. All right, when we come back on TexAgs Radio, recruiting country, Ryan Brauninger's with us. We'll chit-chat
Buckle up.
It ain't a fun ride, but it's the ride that we got to go on. It's TexAgs Radio. We'll be back. Wanted. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Ryan Brauninger is still with us here with the Recruiting Country, presented by Caprock Health System, a faster patient-centered revolution in care with 2 ERs in Bryan College Station, the original 24-hour ER in South College Station off of William D. Fitch, and you've got the full-service hospital with ER in Bryan on Briarcrest, online, caprockhealthsystem.com. Bronny?
Let's talk about things like they're going to make people real upset. Like, how's your cut going?
I have not had a good month.
Oh.
I've had a good 10 days, but not a good month.
How long can we go on this before people start texting in?
One of them might be one of our owners. Put it this way. I'm going to go until Thanksgiving, and then I'll bulk until spring break.
That's right. Holiday season's a good time to dirty bulk. You know what that means?
Eat whatever you want?
As much as you want, yep.
No, I don't do that. I'm kind of reprogramming the way I go about things.
You might have two spoonfuls of mashed potatoes.
Oh, no. When I eat, bro. Like, ask Olin, who's been on the road with me. Yeah, sometimes I get the broccoli, but I'll get 2 servings of the wings, right? Like, I'm gonna eat a lot.
A lot of protein.
Yeah.
Good protein.
And I will eat, when I go to Fargo's, I'm going to get the mac and cheese.
There you go.
It's how
Best
I roll.
barbecue in town.
Oh, so good. Hey, buddy.
Anything else we can talk about?
Other than that, ALCS?
Well, I don't want to talk about that either.
What? Your Houston Texans?
Playing well.
Playing really
Big
well.
fan.
Cowboys playing well?
Hey, you know what? C.J. Stroud. Arrow pointing way up, man. Good player.
And
I love D'Amico Ryans.
Well, I was going to say, they completely, I don't want to say redid the entire organization, because there are some, but they redid a lot of that organization. Starts at top with the head coach. They brought in certain types of players that fit his mold, and they didn't go crazy on the free agency, but they brought in some guys that could help them win. This team ain't making the playoffs this year.
They might. That division stinks.
It does, and they've already beaten the Jags. But they make you believe that they're playing good football. That's not make you. They're playing good football. They're playing the kind of football that you can get down with. C.J. Stroud's got 1 interception on the year. Like, the guy's playing great.
Yep.
And Cowboys, got to give them their props.
Sure. It's a good year for the NFL in the state right now.
Yep. So anyway.
All right, now we want to get into it.
Billy started off the show at the top of the hour, or the top of the show, with the Draylon Miller news. Kind of tell us how we got here.
Yeah, so, I put a big note on the board last night, and a lot of people know, because of my connections in Southeast Texas, I've gotten to know Draylon and his family extremely well. So when all of this started kind of leaking out, I was kept very abreast of what was going on kind of behind the scenes. And it started with me when Draylon had his official visit for the Alabama weekend, gave it glowing remarks. And he mentioned that in his conversations with the coaching staff after the game, how they were planning on using him like a Nias. And, he went on and on about all these great things and how much he really liked A&M and his visit was great. In the end, he said, but I'm not a fan of losing, so we got to do something about that. And I said something about it on the show.
You did.
I was like, it was kind of innocent the way he said it, but it led me to believe that he had been getting hammered with this stuff from all other directions and recruiting rivals of A&M. So you fast forward, they lose to Bama.
And look bad offensively.
Right. They go to Tennessee, look even worse offensively. And that same night, he's in Baton Rouge watching LSU light up Auburn. And I get a phone call Monday morning and basically indicating that things were heading in this direction and that there wasn't much that A&M could do to put the hay back in the barn. And look, I talked to somebody very close to the recruitment that knows exactly what's going on in the day-to-day. It comes down to 2 things. It comes down to winning games and Draylon playing in an offense that he felt was going to maximize his potential and his production. And if those are his 2 reasons for why he's reopening his recruitment, then you'd have to say they're fair given what we've seen, correct? Sure. It had nothing to do with any kind of disdain for Texas A&M. Draylon and his family understood the value of a degree from Texas A&M. They understood the enormity of the Aggie network. They loved College Station. They felt that for them, it gave them a real sense of home. It felt a lot like Silsbee in Southeast Texas when they would come to campus. They were really comfortable with sending Draylon here to go to school. And the source that I talked to was almost acted like the family was real remorseful that they were having to do this because they had just fallen in love with Texas A&M. but they're looking out for the best interest of him on the field and his future on the football field. And so that's why the decision was made. And it's not some like deep underlying conspiracy. Like it's black and white, as I just said. It comes down to winning games and being productive on offense and him playing in a role. And, they were sending him on that Anais Smith role, and Anais had been having trouble getting him the ball the last couple of weeks, And yes, losing Connor Wigman hurts. But in the last 3 years, Texas A&M has lost their starting quarterback, and they've lost games behind it. So what they were getting hammered with, what the recruits are getting hammered with was that's what happens, though. They lose their starting quarterback, and then they lose games. So what would happen if Draylon came to campus and his quarterback got hurt? Then
are we back to where we were at? And we've seen 3 years of it. So I guess my counter to that, let's just say, maybe not even Draylon, whomever chooses LSU. Okay. Well, LSU right now, their offense is pointing up. OB brought it up. Jaden Daniels isn't necessarily he's not going to be there next year, right? So it's going to be somebody else. And we'll see how the rest of their season plays out. Connor the offense was different with Connor. That's the truth.
No question.
So I understand, there's
a counterpoint to it.
There is.
But the difference is, and Billy said it this morning, is Brian Kelly's in year 2.
Mm-hmm.
Billy Napier's in year 2. Steve Sarkisian's in year 3. They're not in year 6 with a couple of years under their belt of everybody going, man, you kind of underachieved with the talent that you got. And this shouldn't be a surprise. None of this should be a surprise that they've lost one of their top commits and they're scrambling to put out fires to hold on to the rest of them, because what have we said since August? If you don't win games, you're not going to sign a bunch of these guys. So this was kind of the expectation. And it wasn't just us saying, the people across the street knew that.
Yep.
And we're living it. We're living the wrong end of it right now. So they have, in my opinion, right now, it's almost like they've completely eliminated any margin for error. So I don't know what 8-4, how that would taste for a lot of kids. I think what it looks like would then become important. But they're catching arrows and daggers from every direction right now. And
7-5 feels terrible, right, for a top 20 recruiting class.
I don't know. Again, you'd have to go specifically individual. What do the kids value?
Yep.
I'm sure there's some of the kids, like the defensive kids, are going, man, they're playing lights out. They're playing young guys. Miles Davis is a kid who's had a good year at Converse Judson, and he's going, all right, Damani's leaving. Who's the other safety?
Mm-hmm.
Could that be me? A&M plays young guys in the secondary. So guys that are wanting to come in and look for early snaps and early playing time, I think on defense, they're going, hey, I'm still pretty good with what the direction things are going. So, but if this Draylon Miller decommitment causes a ripple effect where more and more of them start backing away, then what does that do with the guys you feel good about right now? And we know LSU, Texas, Colorado, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, all these schools are, in the last 24, 48 hours, Jason and I have had conversations with people that have confirmed that these schools are trying to pluck A&M commits right now.
So this is the third year, around the time. Maybe I'm wrong on the week or the date or whatever, but you lose Harold Perkins mid-season, right? Was that mid-season?
No, Harold was at the end.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Harold was at the end.
Anthony Hill was mid-season last year.
Anthony Hill, pretty big guys, you lose, and it's been almost the same reason. I know they're not offensive reasons, but it's about production.
Well,
it's about winning.
Last year, Anthony Hill was about that decommitment was about the wins and losses, yes, but combined with what was going on in the locker room, as you remember the fiasco at South Carolina that didn't sit well with them. There's also some real just giant gaffes in their recruiting experience when they were coming to campus.
Yep.
To A&M's credit, they nipped that in the bud, but why did that happen with that caliber of player in the first place? It's midseason decommitment. A&M rebounded nicely last year. We'll have to see. I mean, there's still a lot of unknowns here, man. And the individual kids are all going to value different things, but it is going to be tough if they don't start playing better.
So they start playing somewhat better. How do they – and when I say somewhat, they start scoring some points, right? Like it's not one touchdown and 3 points in the second half. I don't know what that looks like, 28 points, whatever. They start playing better. How do they not have the ripple effects of losing more dudes? Is it really just the wins?
No, well, it's a combination of things, I think. We talked about Connor Wigman, and I think that is a legitimate thing you can go in and say is like, look what we were doing with this guy pulling the trigger, and he's coming back. So I think you can sell people on playing with Connor Wigman, skill guys at least. I also think getting out on the road, the bye week, again, Billy alluded to it being a really bad time, but also being a really good time. The good thing about it is the coaches are now out on the road this week all over the country, going to practices. They'll be at a bunch of games this weekend. They need to go out there and see these people, these kids, these parents, these coaches at the high schools, get face-to-face and try to put out some of these fires because you don't have an opportunity to bring them in this weekend. And also, speaking of ripple effects, a ripple effect of you playing poorly is now that one of your remaining big recruiting weekends, you only had 2 home games left that were of note with South Carolina and Mississippi State. One of those is now an 11 a.m. kick. That makes it really tough for kids from Dallas, even some from Houston, to get to College Station because the buses that shuttle them to and from campus from College Station High, they start running at 8:20 in the morning or 8 in the morning for 11 a.m. kick. So what time are you, if you're coming from Dallas, what time are you have to get up to come down here? And even from Houston, you got to be there for an 9 o'clock bus. You need to be leaving Houston by 7, coming off of a Friday night game the night before. And it just makes things tough, right? And you don't have any control of that. I understand it. But if you're playing better, if you're 6-1, and even if you get an 11 a.m. game at 6-1, you're still going to have guys show up. So there's a lot of things working against them right now. So this bye week, they've got to get in front of these kids. They've got to start putting out fires face-to-face. They've got their top recruiting guys out on the road doing this. And they're going to have to answer some tough questions, I'd imagine.
If you guys have any questions for Bronny, we'll do it at 979-693-1150, 979-693-1150. All right, so we've talked about the ripple effects of 2024. But what about 2025? Is this having an effect on those kids?
It's too early to say, but it could, right? Because, you think about the 2022 class they signed. What was one of the kickstarters for that 2020 Orange Bowl, right? So a lot of the work you're going to do for, the 24 season or 23 season, it's affecting the 24 class because of the mounting evidence against you. But what does that do to the 25 class? And some of the coaches on staff have gotten off to great starts in terms of building relationships, having a really set group of top targets in that class that the kids have felt like a priority up to this point. But man, I've talked a lot on this show about how talented the 2025 class is in state, especially in the city of Houston. It is as good as I've ever seen. There are some positions where it's a little thin. Right now, there's not a ton of quarterbacks emerging. But on the offensive line, it's loaded. On the defensive line, it's loaded. It is a really good class. So are you kind of setting yourself up behind the 8 ball for 2 classes right now with the product that you're putting on the field? And that's what you don't want, right?
Right.
You don't want to have any kind of carryover into 2025. So there's a lot at stake. We've said this a million times. There's a lot at stake on these Saturdays.
And Draylen is pretty close with a couple other dudes from the area, right?
Yeah, Ty Anthony Smith and Weston Davis. And up to this point, look, it's not all doom and gloom. And I wrote this last line on the site. There are some kids that are still sounding like, hey, we're good right now. I know that I got a good report on Miles Davis. I mentioned Dalen Evans. Jason got a good one on Gabriel Relaford. I haven't heard anything definitive on Ty Anthony Smith and Weston Davis. They are close with Draylen. Weston is a kid that doesn't do a ton of media. Blake Ivey's another one, doesn't do a ton of media. So it's really going to be hard to gauge how open they are. But if you see them start popping up on other campuses for visits, I think that's a pretty clear indicator.
Yep.
But they are doing a pretty good job with, it's not like the entire class is about to fold. I do think that if there is a ripple effect, it'll happen in bits and pieces. I don't think it'll all just come crumbling down all at once. And they've got some really strong ties to these kids, and they've done a good job of recruiting them outside of just what's happening on the football field. And they've built some really firm foundations and relationships with some of their top commits. So, it's not, and it wasn't easy for Draylen to do it, but the warning signs were there.
Other than the Connor effect, what can they counter with? Because you counter with the vision. Look what we're building. Well, the house hasn't been built. So what is their counter?
Yeah, and it's crazy that it's coming, the first decommitment's coming off a home atmosphere at Bama. And we've talked so much about A&M's game day atmosphere being elite, and sets them apart from 99.9% of other schools in the country. You have to just keep trying to sell the vision, I think. And I think you continue to sell Texas A&M and the value of this place and the infrastructure set up. And if you look across the street, no matter what's going on with wins and losses on the field, there's a lot of cranes and front-end loaders moving over there, right? So there's more stuff coming, and the facility upgrades are going to be off the chart and put them up there. They're already amongst the best in the country, and now they're kind of building a Taj Mahal of college football buildings and infrastructure and all those kind of things. And that stuff is easy for kids to see too. Oh, look what they're building. Like, that's with my eyes. That's not a vision. That's what I see with my own eyes. But it goes back to the steak, man. You've sold the sizzle for a long time. But at some point, the steak's got to start tasting good, or the Yelp reviews are going to be awful, and nobody's going to come into your restaurant.
Isn't it amazing that 2 weeks ago we were sitting at a point where, like, they can win this Alabama game. It can change the whole trajectory of everything. And now where we are.
Yeah, they're season-altering plays in those games. There are narrative-defining plays in those games. And you had an opportunity to change those things, and it hasn't gotten changed. Now, who knows? I mean, you want glass half full? They still got half the season left. They go 9-3, and they start putting up 28, 30 points. I think they're going to sign the rest of them. And who knows? You may be able to get back in with Draylon.
Right.
Because I honestly believe that Draylon wants Texas A&M to give him a reason to come to school here.
And then it could be others too, right?
Yeah. And I think –
Are there other names that are starting to pop up?
Yeah. Are we up against a break? We can talk about
– We can hit a break, and we'll come back with that. Yeah, it's Recruiting Country with Ryan Brauninger here on TexAgs Radio. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is
strong intro there.
Was it?
Yeah, from the chest. I love
What?
it.
Did
Yeah.
I use it? Oh.
Yeah.
Hello there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Big time TV David voice.
Recruiting Country presented by Caprock Helson. That's my buddy Greg Bailey.
I think I've asked you this, but I can't remember your response. Does your Spanish broadcasting voice change from your English one? Is it more like deeper and baritone, or is it?
So I honestly try not to have a broadcasting voice. Like, I know that there is a little bit of that.
But people's cadence, if they dual language people, their cadence and their inflection will switch.
Cuando yo hablo español aquí, well, I don't know. I think I do the American anchorman.
Do you really? Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Well, I don't know, because
I don't do a lot of Spanish broadcasting.
The interview you did with Anderson Garcia was more conversational.
Yeah.
So, and then I think because you were talking to another Latin American guy, and what I've noticed is Latin American Spanish is real, like 3 words are rolled into one.
¿Cómo estamos?
Yeah.
¿Tú
They
quieres
cut out,
hablar
yeah.
así? Vamos.
So I didn't know if there was a difference or how much.
I don't even know. I don't do enough broadcasting in Spanish. I'm going to read a note, okay? And it may get you going. Let's see. Where'd it go? Here it is. Edgar Lopez on the YouTube page. LMAO. Did he just say 9-3? And on a talk show, I'm going to start answering, then you can finish it up. We kind of examine all angles. If they were to go on a run, this is what we could see. But if things continue in this direction, this is what we will see. That's basically what you were saying.
Yeah, even the most optimistic Aggie, I think, would look at 9-3 and go, I have a hard time seeing that, right? But you have to talk about it, because there's a chance there is a greater than 0 chance that it can happen. I mean, there's a scenario out there where it does happen, so you got to talk about it.
Ole Miss doesn't have the defense that Tennessee or Alabama has. Look, I'm just making a truth. I know you can't move the ball on anybody right now, it feels like, but that is a truth. The team that showed up against Arkansas can beat Ole Miss. Can.
Yeah, and all these things that have happened the last 2 weeks, you kind of gloss over the mistakes the other teams have made. So if you just cut down your mistakes, how many mistakes did Tennessee make last week?
And Bama the week before.
At one point, I'm going, man, both of these teams trying to lose this game. And Bama the week before was really bad. And then, you go all the way back to, Miami muffin punts. And so it's like, every game that you've lost, you're going, man, the other team made some real mistakes too we could have capitalized on. But, we're getting into the weeds now.
All right. So are there some names out there that A&M could attract?
Yeah, I think one of the things that the coaching staff will have to do as they go on the road is you have to start looking at prospects that have been pinned on your big board to watch tape that you really like to see in your tape and go, okay, like this kid's playing at a really high level. Yep. Maybe he has got some other offers, maybe a bunch of G5 offers or lower level P5 offers, or maybe he's committed to another P5 school. And that's typically not been on your radar. And you go and you scout them and you make sure they're a kid that when they pass the eyeball test, if you're able to get in there and see them, and they do all the things that they look like they do on tape, you got to trust your eyes there. And I think it'd be a very apt decision to start looking at stuff like that, doing your due diligence on a wide array of prospects maybe committed elsewhere that don't have a current offer. So I do think we are going to see some of those names pop up on the board, because I don't want to give away everything that I put out on Premium last night. There is one specific one kind of close to College Station that is getting a real strong look right now, and the kid has ties to A&M and the university, or the football program, I should say. I think we saw some offers go out last night, but they were underclass offers. When you start seeing 24 offers go out, that probably means the coach has been by there, especially if it's in the state. If there's new 2024 offers that go out, it means the coaches have probably been by there.
Sure.
Or they have somebody on site that they really trust if it's an out-of-state kid to make them go ahead and pull the trigger on a new offer.
Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We have Kennedy Cabin there. Kennedy, I know some text messages have popped up for Ryan Brauninger.
Brian. Yes, there are some texts for Brian.
Brian Jones.
By the way, she thinks, the way, like I've talked to her in the back, she's getting like all sassy about, she got a save the date for my wedding. Uh-huh. But if she keeps acting the way she's acting, a save the date's not an invitation.
Just save it, just to know.
Yeah.
I was just going off of what David said.
What did I say?
Brian.
But then she said it 3 or 4 more times because she thought she was.
I was combining Ryan and Brauninger, and that became Brian.
Okay. Well, it's a new nickname for him. Anyways, Matt in San Antonio said, ask Bronny this. So I'm going to ask Bronny this. Since recruiting is so relationship-based, how much harder will this make it on the recruiting trail due to the negative recruiting pitch of the coach recruiting you may not be around next year that other schools will use?
Yeah, but that's anywhere. I mean, you look at the life of a college football coach, position coach, coordinator, head coach.
2-3 years max, right?
Yeah, so that can be anywhere. The relationship building part of it is fine. What they've done in that arena is fine. And I actually think when other schools overly negative recruit, they just keep coming at A&M or they keep coming out a specific position coach.
It hurts them, right?
It ends up hurting them, and they look petty. So the relationship building in that aspect, I think, is fine. And that's why I think if kids do decommit like Draylon did, it's going to be a really tough decision for them because they genuinely like these coaches.
Yeah.
Elijah Robinson on the recruiting trail is a total stud. TJ Rushing, BGA, all these guys, and James Coley, like they're really good recruiters and they build great relationships with these kids. So I don't think they're hurting in that arena. I just think it is as black and white as we are talking about here. It is the win and loss record and the productivity on offense, and that's it.
Miss Kevin.
Colin in Austin said if they lose 2 or 3 of the 5 remaining games and somehow Jimbo gets let go, how bad will it hurt the recruiting class?
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on that. That's too far down the road. We don't know that's going to happen. That'd be more of a Billy question.
And Billy's already said he does not see a scenario where.
Sure.
So, anything else?
That's all I've got.
All right. So, let's summarize because not all is lost in the bye week. They are doing the work. They're going to see these kids. They're trying to continue to develop these relationships and tell everybody, look, we ran into a little hiccup. It's not all for dead.
Yeah, that's putting out fires. I think if they can get through the next couple of weeks, you got to beat South Carolina at home. You weather the storm for the next couple of weeks and just keep what you got. Going into that, and I heard Billy talk about this morning, that Ole Miss game being massive. So if you can just hold your ground recruiting-wise, don't lose any more kids, beat South Carolina, and if you can beat Ole Miss, somehow find a way to beat Ole Miss, you're looking pretty good for a while. It's in the meantime, can you keep it all together?
Let me ask you this, Bronny. If this team finds a way to, because you cannot go into next season, you haven't won a road game in 3 seasons, right? 2.5 seasons. If you can go, and this is not ideal, but this is the scenario I'm painting for you. You split your away games that are left, okay? That means you either win Baton Rouge or Ole Miss, right? You win your home games, so you're 8-4. You win your bowl game, you're 9-4. That at least sends a message, like, because again,
then it becomes very real where you're going, Connor Wigman, we're a 10-win team without question.
Yes.
With a healthy quarterback.
And what I'm saying is not out of the realm of possibility. That is a possible scenario.
Sure. This team, like we've said plenty of times, there's plenty of talent over there for them to do that. Are they going to get, flying in the right direction, everybody flying in the right direction to do that? So, but yeah, if that's your scenario, 8-4 with a bowl win, I think they can sign a top 10 class. You start going south of that, though, and it's going to get tough.
And look, right now, after a 2-game losing
streak. But what we're talking about, though, is a difference between a top 3 class and a top 10 class.
Right.
And even potentially, if it gets worse, top 20. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, sure, yeah.
So there is a threshold for this thing, and we still don't know exactly what the cutoff is, but we're starting to see some fissures, right?
Well, and look, we're not saying we're predicting this. We're just saying, can you believe in your mind that they can win on the road one of these next 2?
Look, everybody wants to be negative about everything right now because it's the easiest thing to pile on. There's so much emotion attached to what's happening on the field. And I understand that there are people that pay a lot of money to go to Texas A&M football games, bring their families. It's an experience, the whole thing, and they're frustrated. So any kind of negative talk, like in recruiting right now, Jason posted a great video with Miles O'Neill, an interview, and with his coach. It got 1 reply on our message board. My update last night on Draylon Miller and kind of what's happening, within an hour had 60 replies. So what does that tell you?
People
are frustrated and they want to jump on that train. But there's still a light here. Like it is not completely slam shut, door closed. It is going to take a lot of work to make that light bigger and brighter and get the hope and belief back in the recruiting class, in the fan base. But it's easy to just pile onto this thing right now.
Yeah. And
a lot of people want to do that. They'd much rather do that right now than talk about the scenario of 8-4 or 9-3, like you said.
And look, none of us want that. We don't. But at this point, that might be the best optimistic view. And the pessimistic view, well, you can look at it however you want.
Sure. They are up against it, no question. And the biggest thing I can say is they have run out of wiggle room.
All right, we're going to hit a break here. Thank you, Bronny. Appreciate your time, buddy. Yeah. When we come back, Michael Bratton, SEC Mike. We are aligned, guys. We are a team. We are unified. That and more next on TexAgs Radio. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. I don't want this to be a bash Jimbo session. I don't. We're going to bring on SEC Mike here on the program, that SEC podcast, our buddy. Mike, a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago, when you made your comments about Sam being better than Jimbo, however things have played out since that point, you couldn't have envisioned what we've seen, because I know you were very high on A&M this year. I assume you couldn't have envisioned what you've seen, right?
I mean, sadly, yes, I could have, but
Okay.
I'm one of these dummies that gets roped in every year to Texas A&M because all the talent and the coaching moves. But I mean, it is what it is. Jimbo is not an elite coach. I don't care that he won a national championship 9 years ago with an NFL quarterback and 11 starters that would go on to become draft picks on the defensive side of the ball. He cannot coach, not at an elite level, not at an elite level to get A&M over the hump. And I would have fired him last year. And they're just delaying the inevitable. I don't care how much money he's owed. A&M is an elite program, and you just get a quality coach in there. And I'm not guaranteeing you win a national championship, but you'll be a heck of a lot closer than you'll ever get with Jimbo Fisher as your head coach.
Mike, what can be made out of this season? Because they've got to go on the road 2 more times. You got Ole Miss, you got LSU. You haven't won an LSU since the mid-'90s, right? Ole Miss, you know the drama with Lane Kiffin. Like, can this be an 8-4 team? Can this be a 9-3 team? Is this a team of 7-5 at best? Like, I mean, just kind of play it out based on what you saw A&M do against Arkansas, Auburn, and now the last 2 games. I'm talking about the totality of the Max Johnson experiment.
Right. Well, this is something we talked about today on our show, That SEC Podcast. So in the preseason, we look at every team's schedule, and we'll just focus on A&M here. And we look at the schedule, and we say which games are absolute wins, which ones are very likely losses. We only had one likely loss, and that was at LSU, final game. So, and I'm not saying LSU some world beater. Their defense, maybe A&M can sneak up and win that one, but I doubt it. Now, the rest, if it's not a win, if it's not a loss, it's a toss-up. Our toss-up so far for A&M, Miami, you lost it. Bama, you lost it. Tennessee, you lost it. And we got Ole Miss on there too. So as long as Jimbo's the coach, I consider that a loss as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think the best you could do is 7-5 record for Texas A&M. And, you know, I just heard your last guest, Ryan. I mean, saying, you know, we got to, don't bury him. There's recruiting and all. It's not on the fans, David. It's on Jimbo, and it's on this coaching staff. Give these fans something to cheer about. You should not put it on the fan base to keep this thing together. Jimbo's had enough time. I'm at the point where I'm done talking about this, Dave. I mean, I'm just waiting for them to get rid of him so that we can get an upgrade, so that we can make Texas A&M an elite football program, which it is in most regards, except for coaching right now.
So let me ask you this, Mike. They were going one direction with Connor. It's been a different direction under Max. But the team that showed up against Auburn, the team that showed up against Arkansas, they can win some games. And I'm embarrassed the way not embarrassed, not the right word. They did not bring it offensively the last couple weeks, and some of that might be defense. Some of that might just be you're hamstrung because of blocking and Max holding on to the ball too long. But, like, the offense wasn't so bad a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I hear you, but that's life in the SEC, Dave. I mean, you adjust, or at least you should. And I don't see any, you know, the offensive line. I mean, that's a real problem. I mean, how many times are they snapping and the ball's rolling back to Max Johnson? That's not on Max Johnson, and that's blowing up plays. I can't believe for anyone criticizing Max Johnson, and I'm not saying he's out here playing stellar football, but I mean, he is getting killed out there. And this is why every year A&M's having their quarterbacks get injured. So I don't think that's an excuse anymore, because they should have fixed the offensive line. They got talent all across there. Steve Adazio, let's hope he leaves town too, because he is not getting it done. And who hired him? Of course, Jimbo Fisher. So, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying here. You're trying to be positive, but what is the point? The point is, if everything breaks right, maybe we can go 8-4. And that got the last coach run out, that's not good enough. So I don't know why we're sitting here trying to, well, maybe we can swing this. Maybe we can get 9-3. Maybe we can get 8-4. That should not be the standard. In year 6 in College State, I don't care who got hurt. Players get hurt all across the SEC. Brock Bowers just got hurt at Georgia, and I realize he's not a quarterback, but it's not doom and gloom at Georgia because Brock Bowers got hurt. I'm just over these excuses.
Mike, first off, I elicit conversation for the spirit of conversation, right? Like, so we have in a 15-hour a week radio show, we got to look at all sides and what can happen and what shouldn't or what won't happen. My optimism level is not there. And to be 100% honest with you, it hasn't been there for a while, right? Like I thought this team was probably going to be 9-3, 8-4, which is, by the way, still possible. When the season started, that's what I thought. They were, and I was leaning towards 8-4. Still possible. The thing that I am just more at dismay at is the thing that bugs me the most is the offense right now in SEC play looks worse than the offense last year that was terrible.
Yeah, and maybe that is a factor of Connor going down, but again, you had me on right when that happened. And what did we say? And I thought it was a consensus that there would be a drop-off, but it wouldn't be drastic because Max Johnson is, he may be the best backup quarterback in the SEC. So it should not be this bad. But again, it goes back to the offensive line. I know some of the receivers are banged up, but where they're not being utilized, I realize the tight end got hurt. So, I mean, again, we can sit here and what if this guy, what if that guy, but it goes back to the head man. And I realize we brought in Bobby Petrino, and that I credited Jimbo at the time, and I still do. I credit him for making adjustments because it's working for someone like Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, who brought in an offensive-minded coach. It's worked wonders for them. And I thought that it had worked wonders for A&M, but now that we're getting into this grind of the schedule, you're right. It's the same old. And I think there's a price that needs to be paid for that.
How's my buddy Cousin Shane doing? I know he caught some flack because he thought A&M was the better team this past weekend, even though Tennessee won.
Yeah, well, Vol Nation's mad at Cousin Shane right now for that comment, but he's sticking by it. I mean, he does think A&M, and I think the way he put it was brilliant. If you had switched Jimbo Fisher and his coaching staff for Josh Heupel and his coaching staff, I think A&M would have destroyed Tennessee last weekend. Now, that in that hypothetical, who knows? He could be wrong, but I think he's absolutely correct. It's coaching. A&M's got a better roster than Tennessee. I realize it was on the road, but I know Tennessee's 5-1, but that's a program that I think is teetering towards multiple losses. And at the end of the season, if that happens again, A&M, I think is going to be sitting here saying, how in the heck did we let that one get away with a Tennessee? What, they scored one offensive touchdown and we still lost that football game? I mean, that's baffling.
What do you does Tennessee, are they able to score enough against Bama to make it an interesting game?
No, I don't think so. You got the revenge factor and everything. Of course, I didn't think they would run for 232 yards on Texas A&M either. I thought 100 yards on this A&M defense was a good day. So credit Josh Heupel. He's flipped the switch. They were high flying, no defense last year. Now they're all defense and running the ball, and they can't throw the ball for whatever reason. If they could find the passing game, but at this point of the season, I don't think you can't just sit here and say, well, half the season, maybe we'll find I don't think they're ever going to find a passing game under their current quarterback. So now I think it's going to be a rough day. I like Alabama in that matchup.
You think Jaden Daniels gets invited to New York the way his season's going, and will they have enough wins to get him to New York?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key question because he's playing well enough to not only get there, but I think to win the Heisman. But what you've done up to this point, you're not going to be judged on. He's going to be judged on what he does against Alabama and A&M. If, to your point, maybe A&M kind of rallies here, I still think that could potentially be a quality win against a really good defense. Again, the defense is stellar for A&M. I know they got run on last week, but it's going to come down to specifically that Alabama game. That I think is Jaden Daniels' Heisman moment. And if this is a huge if he beats Georgia, if LSU beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, and they'll be a massive underdog, but if he does, there's no doubt in my mind Jaden Daniels will win the Heisman Trophy.
You say that, and I'm not saying that LSU, I mean, obviously they have a very capable offense. They've made some changes to their defense to at least be more presentable. Their season could have gone, I don't want to say in a similar direction as A&M, but there was that moment where, like, in the Missouri game, I'm like, they may see 3, 4, 5 losses, right? Now it doesn't feel that way, especially when you see what's ahead. But they are still teetering, are they not? Or am I completely off there?
No, I think you're 100% right. And I think that's just kind of the state of the SEC right now. Even Georgia, who was in a dogfight at Auburn. I don't think Auburn's good at all. Alabama, I don't want to say they nearly lost to South Florida, but they could have. I think they should have lost to A&M, and even Arkansas. I think if Arkansas had one more possession, they probably would have won that game last week. So I think it's just the state of the SEC, David. I don't think there is an elite team, and that counts Georgia. I truly don't think. They're probably top 5. I don't want to totally discredit them, but they've not been overly impressive outside of the one game against Kentucky. So, yeah, you're right. But again, it's coaching, it's players stepping up, making plays, and Jaden Daniels is on fire, and that's why LSU is not 3-3 or something like right now, which they could be without him.
Mike, is this the first time in some time that, and I don't know, I'm putting words in your mouth here, that you aren't confident the SEC is going to win a national championship?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even. This is crazy to say, but it could be true. SEC may not even get a playoff team in there. If Georgia, with their schedule, I think they'll go undefeated. But if they somehow find a way to lose in the SEC championship game, I don't care that they won the last 2. Their resume is this year, and I don't think they will have the resume to get in. And if they now, let's see who they play. Is it Alabama, who's got 1 loss? Yeah, Alabama will make it. If it's LSU though with 2, depending on what happens with Florida State, if Florida State wins the ACC, obviously that'll help LSU's case. But I truly don't think it's that bizarre to sit here and say the SEC may not have a single college football playoff team, and I can't believe I'm even uttering those words.
Let's just play out a scenario where Bama makes it to the playoffs and they play Texas, okay? Is that the same Bama team that played Texas at the beginning of the year under that scenario? Or if they played right now? Right.
I think right now they are about the same. I truly do. I'm not buying Alabama. And again, I get it. They beat. I went on national television, David, and I guaranteed A&M would beat them by 2 touchdowns. I said so. I was a fool that day. I may still be a fool, but I don't think Alabama's that good. They bounce right back and struggle against Arkansas. Again, maybe they'll destroy Tennessee. I think that's highly possible, but I don't have faith in that offense to destroy any SEC team. They do have a great defense, and their special teams made some huge plays against A&M, won them the ball game. So, no, I think if Texas played Alabama again, same result, I think Texas would win and win easily.
Talking SEC, Mike, here. One last thing. What about Ole Miss? I know you've talked about the status or where the SEC is overall, but is Ole Miss, the Ole Miss that we saw last year, that they're really not as good as their record seemed to be early on in the season, or are they this year? Maybe they have figured it out.
Yeah, they're kind of the toughest team for me to peg, David. They've had a lot of guys injured, and early in the season, and specifically that Alabama game, it revealed itself. They could not run the ball, and if you can't run the ball, I know Kiffin gets this reputation as a quarterback whisperer and throw it all over the yard, but Ole Miss is built on the running game. And they could not run the ball against Alabama. They couldn't run the ball against Tulane, and they nearly lost that one too. Now they found that running game, which makes them dangerous. They're getting weapons back, but I'm not a believer in Ole Miss, and I think the odds makers are with me because they're less than a touchdown favorite at Auburn this weekend. Again, Auburn is, I think, one of the worst teams in the SEC. So Ole Miss has still got a lot to prove to me. They still got a trip to Georgia coming up. And I think that's going to eliminate them from any kind of dream season.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Mike. We'll do it again. All right, buddy?
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I will hit a break here. I'll come back. I see Smudge and Calvin having some comments on, and I want to address it because I don't think they understand what we're doing here. So we're going to get into that. Right now we're talking Heritage Films, and that's Chance McClain's company. I say his name because he's somebody that I've known for 20 years, a dear friend, just an artist, very just creative. Started radio stations, Broadway musicals. You know, he's done it all. He's done everything you can imagine when it comes to the creative art, right? And he started Heritage Films a couple years back with the because he wanted to tell people stories. He wanted to tell, Grandpa's story about how the family was made, about how the ranch came together, how the business came together, how he met his beautiful wife and started this amazing family. That's what Heritage Films was founded on. And then along the way, he figured out, man, there's a lot of stories I can tell, not just about Grandpa and Dad and Mom, right? There's other stories I can tell. And that's why he started Year Flicks, which are for the youngers, where you tell their story, right? A Q&A, 20-minute style of video that you get to know your kid, more of a benchmark video. Freshman year of college, this is what I'm into. This is what I'm studying. By the time you do the junior year one, I've changed my major twice, but I figured out that I really want to be X, Y, and Z. It is a cool thing that Chance does, and I'm telling you, you're going to love it. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. I want to address this, and these are my guys on the TexAgs chat, so I'm not mad at them or anything, and nor should I be, by the way. Everybody hears things the way they want to hear things, but I want to read this out loud because it says, Nuño, don't go there. Way too many ifs. Don't allow yourself to be disappointed once again. The ifs, and there's more to it. And Smudge says, I get we have to be positive, but we're talking about having to beat Ole Miss at Oxford. I'm not being positive. Like, guys. And then Calvin says, it's a radio, folks, just trying to keep Aggie faithful on board. I have never, Nick, you can chime in here. I've never had a meeting with people where I'm trying to keep people on board. I'm not on board. I predicted the loss to Tennessee. I'm not optimistic.
Yeah, I agree.
So, like, But if all I said to you guys when I'm interviewing somebody or talking is like, well, they're going to lose, so it doesn't matter. What's the point of listening? The conversation, because that's why we love sports, right? Like, we love it because most of us are going to tune in and see what happens for that magical moment that has happened once in 2 years, right? Like, or once each year, right? But I'm not optimistic that things are going to be fixed. I wouldn't predict a win on the road this year right now. I wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who's commented in there, they didn't. I'm not saying the folks you're talking about did this, but I mean, anybody who, like, I look at the YouTube comments sometimes and the crap that people say, just if they claim that you know, y'all are sunshine pumping, they're just not listening. They're just simply not listening.
I do offer, and we got to hit a break here, but I do, we got to end the show. I do offer, like,
for the rest of the day,
conversations, right? Like, because then why else would you tune into the show?
Exactly.
Do you want to just be like, let's be mad? I'm mad too. It sucks. It sucks as I've been here. I love Wade Taylor, though, and I love you all watching and listening. Thank you so much. I won't see you mañana because I'm taking a day off finally. See ya.